How are you doing? Oh, okay. Couple of meetings after CD. You have meetings lined up today. So, let's to highlight the meeting with experiment plan. Yeah.
Hi everyone, good evening. We'll just start in 2 minutes more. We'll let more people join the meeting. Hi everyone, a very good evening to all who've joined the webinar. Our topic for today is driving engagement the gift work way, and we'll have Dr. Vishwanath Joshi, who's going to be the presenter for today's webinar. So over to you, Vijay, for the webinar.
Hey, thank you so much. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, based on wherever you are a part of this session. Thank you for joining in. Very happy to have all of you on this webinar. My name is Vishwanath. My full name is Vishwanath Joshi, and I'm a part of the Great Place to Work team. And I can assure you that the next 45 minutes that we have on this webinar are going to be mutually rewarding. And the reason why I'm saying mutually rewarding is, of course, I have something to share with you, and I hope that you will take away value. But at the same time, I'm sure each one of you will have your own experiences, your own ideas, your own thoughts on the theme that we are discovering today. Not new. We have all been talking about it in many different ways, in many different forums. thinking about it. I'm sure many of you are actively pursuing this theme as a part of your career, as a part of your maybe academic engagements, your research programs. And what I'm sharing with you today is how we have discovered this theme, how we are learning about this theme at Great Place to Work. I'm sure all of you are aware of Great Place to Work as a global brand. We're fairly established across more than 70 countries as a workplace culture recognition organization. And therefore, having worked with more than 21,000 organizations across the globe, we have also learned a few things along the way about the whole theme around engagement. And what I'm going to share with you is some unique aspects of how we have studied this, how we have learned about engagement in our journey at Great Place to Work. And you will find that a lot of this really has to do with leadership effectiveness in organization. And therefore, we have called this driving engagement the Giftwork way. Now, what is that Giftwork way is something that we will discover in this session. So with that, thank you again for joining in. And I'm going to begin this session for all of us with a little bit of a guesswork. And I hope that some of you will be able to guess what's coming up on the screen. Here is Apni Pathshala, literally means our school. Here are some more for you to get closer to your guess. An idea called Bara Baj Gaye, which literally means it's 12 o'clock. Here is one more. It's called No Surprises. Sounds like common English, but let me assure you, we are looking beyond the language here. And therefore, as I share with you a few more of this, I would encourage you to think about what you think this is. And please do use your chat window on this session so that you can share what you think these things are that coming up on the screen. Some of us might be familiar with a very, very common words that our cricketer Navjot Singh Sidhu, also a parliamentarian for some time, used to use in one of his programs called Thoko Tali, which literally means clap. Here is another very interesting idea called Into the Future. And remember, I said this is more than English. So let's try and guess what this could be. Here is a lovely idea that I came across very recently called standing ovation. We use this very commonly in our day-to-day parlance, but I'm pushing all of us to think, what could this be in the context of the theme that we are talking about today? So there is Tokotali, there is standing ovation, then there is something called career sensex. For those of us who are invested in our equity markets, who follow the Sensex regularly, make your own calculations, possibly our monthly budgets based on this. Here is another idea called career sensex. One of the ideas that I have been personally very fascinated about because I've seen how this works. So let me give you a clue here. It is sensex about career. So I'm talking about an organizational context and therefore career sensex. Another interesting idea called I am all ears, EARS. So maybe it has something to do with ears. Another very common Hindi term, Sikho Sikhao, which literally means learn and help me learn. Sikho Sikhao. An idea that I learned from a management team in a very large organization. They called it open heart conversations. Initially, they didn't add the word conversation, so it became a little bit of a joke in the organization. But later on, when they added the word conversation, it actually made sense. Open heart makes a very different sense, right? And you certainly don't want to make it look like open heart. So they said open heart conversation. So what does all this mean? Where is all this coming from? And of course, many more. We have thousands of such examples of what's happening in organizations that are looking at engagement as a very, very serious affair. Yeah. But think about it, right? None of these sound serious. They don't look serious, they don't sound serious. It's too much of a colloquial connotation to each of this. But let me assure you, each of this is working magic in these organizations. These programs, these ideas, at Great Place to Work, we call them practices, are making a significant impact on the organization, the way the employees experience that organization, the organization's engagement scores, the organization's performance matrices, this organization's customer satisfaction feedbacks, these organizations in terms of their net promoter score, and many other such ways in which any organization measures the business of business. While these terms don't sound business like, that's exactly what the spirit of these programs is all about. These are employee programs which are making a difference to how the organization does business on a day-to-day basis. And therefore, this must give you some clue about what we are talking about in this context on how do you drive employee engagement. I'm sure at least some of us listening to this webinar, while these words and these terms were flashing on the screen, at least some of us would have been curious, thinking, what is this? Are we in the right webinar? Or are we in some kind of a literature fest? But again, let me assure you that these are all what we know at Great Place to Work are extremely powerful engagement programs with different objectives, different purposes, and yet with the same goal. And the goal is, how do you create an energetic, enthusiastic, productive workplace that is not just known for what it does on the business front, but also what it does on the cultural front. If you really decode these and thousands of such programs that are running in organizations, you will find that there is a theme, there is a design, of course, there is an intention. And therefore, very recently, I was listening to the Home Minister of India, Amit Shah, in speaking in a parliament. And what he said in that small speech stayed with me very, very strongly. So let me share with you what that was about. And then I'll link it back to the first slide that you just saw. I like to call it the rule of three. And he was talking about what makes any country, any organization, any community a great community, a great country, a great organization, a great uh, movement. And he talked about three things that I believe are very pertinent for us in this conversation on driving engagement. He said, any country, any company, any organization, any institution needs three things. One, it needs a neta, a leader. Somebody who will take accountability for driving the organization, driving that community, driving that country. So you need a neta, leader. The second thing that you need is niti, methods. You can't become great by random stuff. You become great only when there is a plan, there is a method, there is a policy, there is an approach that you take. And I'm hoping that by the end of this session, you will take away that approach on how you can make your organization, your team, a great place to work. And the third thing he talked about, which is very, very critical, of course, is the niyat, the intention. So you need neta, niti, and niyat. You need a leader, you need some method, some design, some process, and of course, you need the right intention. One without the other is not going to take us too far in this journey of driving an engaged workforce, a productive workforce. Now, what does it mean to us in this context? Here are the 6 fundamental aspects of this journey, moving from a good to a great, as we have learned and we have studied with thousands of organizations and thousands of managers and leaders who are doing this very successfully. One, they have built a foundation of trust. Now, trust is a word that's often overused, but you can't underestimate the impact of it. And therefore, the question for all of us is, are you leading the organization based on control, or are you leading the organization based on trust? And definitely one lesson that we have learned at Great Place to Work is the foundation of a great workplace is the foundation of trust. And that means at the end of the day, the quality of relationships that we have built, we have sustained, we have invested in the organization has a huge impact on whether the organization runs on control or it runs on trust. So the whole foundation of driving this engagement philosophy or engagement practice is, have you built enough trust? The foundation, the strength of that trust, are people experiencing it on a day-to-day basis? The second important aspect is, like I just mentioned, the quality of relationships, which are in turn a function of the quality of interactions that you are having in the organization. Let me here give you one very quick example. One of the organizations right now we are working with identified that one area of improvement to building a great workplace experience from an employee viewpoint was the need for collaboration. And we all know this from our experience. There are times when there are brilliant people in the organization who are pulling the organization in different directions. And that's not the best thing to happen from a collaboration point of view. So this company said, look, we want to build a collaborative culture. And therefore, we know that collaboration does not happen just because you do a Friday evening pizza party for employees. Collaboration is much more than the Friday evening pizza parties. So what did they do? They got all their managers together and said, look, you are the conduit of the culture. People experience culture through you. So why don't you brainstorm and come up with ideas on what can we do team by team so that we can build this foundation of trust and improve the quality of relationships. So these managers got together and they came up with a very interesting idea, a very interesting practice. It was called, and because this was a company up north in India and Hindi is a common language, they came up with a program called Hum Saath Saath Hain. Some of you will remember this as a title of a Bollywood movie called Hum Saath Saath Hain. That is how they branded the program. And this program was about getting members from different cross-functional teams together through planned intervention, through planned activities. And these activities were of 3 types. One, celebration activities, because they thought when people celebrate together, they work together very well. Second, learning activities. So they said, if people come together to learn together, it will improve their quality of relationships and collaboration in turn will improve. And third is through communities. We also know them as clubs, where people come together for different objectives in a semi-formal setting, which could be a community development program or which could be furthering some common interests, which could be technical or non-technical. They go trekking together, they have a biking club, they have a community program club. And these are the clubs under which people with similar interests come together. And they call this program Hum Saath Saath Hai. Every 2 months, there were opportunities in one or more of these buckets for people to come together. Anyway, people come together. But here is an organizational program with a specific organizational objective. In this case, it was improving the collaboration. Therefore, the second foundation of building this strong culture, a great workplace culture is to improve the quality of relationships. They don't happen by themselves. You will need some design for it. And therefore, we have recognized at Great Place to Work that there are at least 9 opportunities that managers and leaders in the company can influence the quality of these relationships. 9. These are 9 different kinds of interactions that managers and leaders can promote through some design principles, not randomly, not whenever we have time. Something that I keep sharing with all the leaders and managers and tell them, look, culture is not separate from business. I think some people have this misunderstanding that on one hand there is work and on the other hand there is culture, which means when we don't have work, then we will build culture. Not realizing that culture is actually the way the work gets done. Therefore, you can't build a culture separate from work. And therefore, you need some design at the workplace so that these 9 opportunities can be leveraged to improve the quality of interaction, improve the trust levels, and of course, subsequently improve how people experience the company and how they perform together. And therefore, there are 4 investments that you will need. 4 fundamental investments that can help you create this environment and actually get the impact that you desire, that you want from a business viewpoint also. I can just go on with hundreds of stories because I have personally delivered 350 such workshops enabling managers and leaders to build this great workplace culture across more than 3 dozen companies. And I have seen the impact that this approach creates in not just creating engagement, but also running a successful business. So this one slide is actually about a thought process, a philosophy on driving engagement with a certain approach. And what is that approach? So now let me take each of these boxes and talk about them a little more in detail. We have been using the word great workplace for some time now in this webinar. So let me quickly clarify the definition of it. You can look at a great workplace from 2 viewpoints. One is a manager viewpoint. And again, like I said, these are all quality of relationships. So what kind of a relationship does a manager have with regard to the management and the organization? And that's a relationship of performance. Manager is looking at the job and saying, is everyone giving their personal best to the job? Because just doing best today is not enough. The most underlined word here is personal best. At Great Place to Work, we call this discretionary effort. Now, the question remains, right, for all of us. Why the hell will anybody give discretionary effort? Why should I not just work 5 or 9 to 5, as we call it, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and just get done with it for the day? Who the hell wants to think about organization, product, customer, brand, relationship? 9 to 6, job hours over, that's it. But today, that's not enough, right? We need that discretionary effort. And third is, while working with other employees, are they working together? Constantly, this is a nightmare for a manager. Is my team working together? Are they well connected? Are they well oiled amongst themselves? Do they share positive relationships? This is a manager's viewpoint. Then, of course, there's an employee viewpoint, which is fundamentally about the same 3 relationships, but seen very differently. For an employee, he or she is thinking, can I trust these people? Will they trust me? I'm working for them, but will they trust me? Can I trust them? The same relationship with the job. Is that relationship based on pride, or is that just a relationship that's based on a transaction? I give you my work, my sweat, labor, you pay me at the end of the month, and that's over. And third is, of course, while I'm connected to other employees around me in my team, am I having fun working with them? So now you see there are two viewpoints looking at the same 3 relationships: relationship with higher ups, management, relationship with my own job, relationship with my other colleagues. And these relationships actually drive what kind of an experience will I have in this organization and how you wish that these relationships, all of them, all the time, are only positive. They are not. So how do we design them to be positive? And that's connected with the foundation of trust. We are all aware of the significance of trust. I'll not spend too much time here, but definitely share with you a belief and something that we have seen in action in best workplaces with the best leaders and managers. They are constantly filling their trust reservoir every day because they know they're also losing the deposit in some way because of the difficulty of the tough day, the business difficulties. Sometimes it gets tough, environment gets tough, and therefore the managers are constantly losing trust. But great managers, effective managers, they're also replenishing that trust reservoir. They're doing something on a day-to-day basis to making sure that their trust reservoir balance remains high enough, because they know that the discretionary effort will only come when their trust reservoir has enough balance. And therefore, one way to look at trust at the workplace is, are our interactions building these trust? Or our interactions, draining this trust? Just the way you conduct your, let's say, performance feedback, just the way you share information with your people, just the way you give them or don't give them a voice, just the way you invest or not invest in their growth and development. And this is not just about sending them for a training program, right? It is managers' personal investment that's going to build the manager's trust. And this is not about the training department trust or HR department trust, right? It's our own immediate supervisor or manager. Are they doing what it takes in every interaction that they're having to making sure that their trust reservoir is well filled? Otherwise, just a news item in a newspaper can drain the managers of the trust of their own team members. And therefore, the foundation of trust becomes a very, very critical aspect of how do you keep this going at the workplace? Are you conscious that your every email has the potential? Your every town hall has a potential. Your every one-on-one conversation has a potential. Your every informal conversation over a cup of tea, every travel time that you share with your team members, if at all you do, each of this has a potential either to build trust or deplete trust. So that consciousness is really where the leaders or the manager's role starts in creating a great workplace environment. And these are all day-to-day interactions. These are not those once a year interaction or once in a while interaction. I remember a manager in a very large IT services company had a wonderful practice that he had started for himself. It was called JLT, just like that. In fact, it became the manager's brand. His personal brand became a JLT manager. What did he do? And one of the managers in that company who enjoyed highest score on trust by his team members. So what did he do to make this happen? Every morning when he comes to work, leave the laptop bag on the table, not open the laptop, because the moment you open the laptop, your life changes. I'm sure many of us will agree to this. So leave the laptop bag on the table, go around the floor just like that. These are conversations, interactions without any agenda, without any preset questions, just first 20 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes here, 3 minutes there, 5 minutes there, 1 minute with somebody else. 20 minutes of investment. And he was telling me, he said, Vijay, that 20-minute investment I make every day gives me so much to work on, so much to think about, so much to even change in the way I manage my team. So every day for me, that 20 minutes is an amazing investment. In the process, he is learning so much about what's happening in the team and is able to help the team in a much, much better fashion. So these are the kind of interactions that I'm talking about for every manager. Now, with this foundation of trust, I'm sure my friends in training will identify this. This is normally a game used saying build a trust. This person is now going to fall back on you, and and we all have experienced this at some point in time, right? So we are talking about more than that. We're talking about It's not just what you're doing, but how you are doing it that matters. Yeah. So in this case, of course, are you attentive enough to the person falling back, trusting you, and you probably just dropped him and dropped the trust as well. So jokes apart, here is the key concept that I wanted to share with you. And you will know when you look at it completely, this is not a theoretical concept. It's actually about what happens in organizations on a day-to-day basis. But more than what happens, it is how it happens. So in great workplaces, the quality of interactions between the managers and team members are different. They are just different. You can feel it, you can experience it, you can even see it. Because these interactions are grounded, are embedded in some special practices and behaviors. And that's a phenomenon that at Great Place to Work we call gift work. It's a combination of two words. It's not a word from dictionary, but it's a word that people live in these great workplaces. It's really about how do you make work a gift? Otherwise, who the hell wants to get up in the morning and come to work, right? But if at workplace I have gifts to receive, and of course, any reasonable person can't just keep receiving gifts, right? He or she is also going to think about how do you give the gift back? And therefore, right now, as some of you are attending this session, I'm sure your team members back on the floor or back on the field are doing a great job for your customers. That's a gift that they are giving you. You take away some ideas, go back and share with your team over a cup of coffee tomorrow morning. That's a gift that you're giving back to the team members. And therefore, imagine a workplace which is about exchanging these gifts. And these gifts can come in a variety of forms, but gifts that people value, and a gift exchange program, which is not just a transaction. And that is why we are saying that this concept is not just about a philosophy, it's actually a way of life, which means how can what we do at workplace not just be a transaction, but something more than a transaction. In the process, there might be a transaction, but the objective is not just to finish a transaction. And just for all of us who are interested in a definition of a gift work, like I told you, it's really about how do you make a workplace a gift exchange workplace. Yeah. And therefore, here is a definition at Great Place to Work. This is a definition we live by to say that gift work is an interaction in the workplace where an employee or a manager gives more than is expected or required for the sake of the organization or the relationship. So the most critical word here is more than is expected. Yeah, more than, extra. So where will that culture of extra come from? Why will somebody give more than is expected? In fact, some of us could argue saying people don't even give what is expected. And here we are saying more than is expected. Whenever I am asked this question in an audience of managers and leaders, I often tell them more than is expected has to be earned. Doing just what is expected is a matter of structure. Just by the virtue of such structure, you will get what is expected. The rating of 3, right? But if you want more than what is expected, which is what, of course, you're also promising your customers, then you will have to do more than is expected as a manager or as a leader. Only when you first give that you are going to get. And therefore, the whole idea is to identify the difference between a commodity interaction or a transactional interaction or a gift work interaction. How will you know that this is a gift work interaction and not just a transactional interaction? And here are some differences that you can identify in the behaviors of managers as well as their team members. In a transactional interaction, the goal is individual advantage. What do I want? Whereas in a gift work interaction, the goal is always mutual. It is also what other person wants. Interactions are low risk. You can't go wrong, right? If you follow an SOP, you can't go wrong. So it's a low risk interaction. But you want more than the SOP, then it's high risk. It is actually about vulnerability, because then somebody might just come and say, hey, who asked you to do this, right? But it's a high risk, limited information, that is transaction. Transparency is gift work. And I'm sure all of you, when you look back at your experience, you will know how bloody tough it is for organizations, even individuals and managers, to create that sense of transparency in the culture. Not easy, because information is power. So you share limited, you are also going to get limited commitment. So once I complete the transaction, the obligation is over. Whereas in a gift work interaction, there is continuity of relationship. Generally, interactions are the same for all. It's a one-size-fits-all way of doing things. Whereas gift work interactions, like gifts in a social context, are highly personalized. Often, the argument in transaction is all about, like in Hindi, we say, kitna diya, kitna liya. How much have you given? How much have you got? So it's a calculation. Whereas in gift work interaction, the currency is trust. And therefore, the question for you and me is, how do we encourage a gift work culture in our team, in our organization, rather than get stuck with transactions? Transactions always have limitations. Whereas today we are talking about limitless, boundaryless culture. And therefore, this is the way of life in great workplaces with high employee engagement, because each one is giving more and also getting more. So where are the opportunities and what are the design principles? Here are the design principles. Since it's a gift work, your gift has to be unique. It can't be a one-size-fits-all. The quality of interactions must demonstrate generosity, big-heartedness. You can't be stingy and create a great workplace experience. You need to have that generosity, that magnanimity of heart, and ask yourself, what can you be generous about? You can be generous about time, opportunities, information, trust, learning. Yes, you can't be generous about some things like increments, like number of leaves, like promotions. There will always be limitation on this. Whatever curves you use, you'll always be limited to give any of these things. But there is no curve that limits any manager or leader to limit the time that you spend with your team members to help them learn something. The opportunities you can give them to try out their interest areas and do some experiments, to learn from them, to explore their potential. No limitation on any of this, right? Have any of you heard of any kind of a bell curve on learning opportunities? No, you haven't. I haven't. I've been a CHRO myself, and I haven't really heard anything that says, hey, there is a bell curve on how much time you spend with your team members to help them understand the big picture, understand their role. No. So you have to be generous. You have to individualize that experience, whether you're learning, speaking, sharing information, appreciating and celebrating. You can't have a policy way of doing this. Yeah, of course, we all need policies. Please don't get me wrong. We also have a policy guideline book at Great Place to Work. All great workplaces have policy guidelines. But remember, we're talking about going beyond the minimum, right? And if there is a beyond the minimum way of working, then some of them have to be individualized. Of course, what you do has to fit your context. Hybrid working is a context today, right? You can't forget that context and wish it away. Yeah, multi-generations working at the workplace is a context. Technology is a context. Globalization is a context. So within this context, what can you do and how can you do it? For example, if I have a hybrid working team, I can't say all our interactions will only happen in office. Maybe I'll have to figure out some other way of having some interactions, which are also virtual interactions. I have a young workforce, and therefore I can't say that our celebrations will take the form that were traditional, We have to now bring in some new ways of celebrating so that your young workforce also feels connected to those celebrations, fit the context. And finally, do it together. The journey of culture is a journey of togetherness. It's not a journey of isolation. So whatever you're doing to engage your team members, you have to involve them in the process. And therefore, how do you do that? Where are your opportunities? And here are the 9 opportunities. Some of you might be familiar with this framework because for a very long time, we had this framework as a part of our what we then called culture audit. But these are your opportunities. Each of this is a leadership opportunity or a managerial opportunity to make a difference to how people experience the workplace. When you inspire people, help them connect with the big picture. Speaking is all about information sharing. Listening is all about giving them a voice and make them feel involved. Thanking is about recognition and appreciation. Of course, we do it once a year, once in 6 months, because that is what our policy says. But can you imagine doing recognition every day? And one practice that I saw was Thokotali, where the team, whenever there was an opportunity to appreciate someone in the team or even outside the team in cross-functional teams, the entire team would walk up to that person's desk and clap for that person for 1 minute. Can you imagine the sound and the noise it creates on the floor when some 17, 18 people are clapping together for 1 minute? Huge sound, and a sound that becomes a memory eventually for the person. It's a memory that can't be faded away because that's the experience of recognition that this person has through this practice called Thokotali. Developing. The career sensex practice that I talked about is actually a developing practice. The manager said, look, how do I get people to own up their career? And this company was in the business connected with stock exchange. They knew the concept of sensex very well. So they actually put up career plan on a chart for every team member in the team, visible to everybody, so that everybody knows who the hell wants the graph to go down, right? You don't want the sensex to go down. While experts would argue that you earn money only when it goes down. But here the objective was keep the graph going up, which means whenever you see it's flat, you are now going to take ownership and say, hey, what can I learn this week that I can improve my chart? And then somebody in the team will walk up and say, hey, I remember you were looking for some course on risk management. Here is a course that my friend sent me. Would you like to take a look at it, talk to them, see their website? So there's also collaboration in helping each other learn and grow through this practice. Then caring is really about caring for people as people. This has nothing to do with how many years of service you have put in, how long you have been in the team, what level you are. The caring is for people as people. And therefore, a lot of our work-life balance initiatives are around caring. You don't wait till you have a headache and then give an aspirin. That's not caring. That's just being nice. But if caring has to become a culture, then it has to be integrated with how you do business on a day-to-day basis. So one of the teams started a very interesting practice. They said, 1 week in a month, we will choose as a team that will be a no meetings week. That week, you can safely commit to your friends, your family, your yoga teacher, that you will be available for the yoga session that week because it is no meetings week. I go on time, I come back on time. Nobody will disturb me in the evenings. No calls, no meetings. 1 week. We may not be able to do this for the entire month, but definitely we'll be able to do this for 1 week. That's caring. Celebrating. And we all understand the significance of celebration. Something that definitely brings the team together. And I'm not talking about birthday celebrations and anniversary celebrations. Of course, they should happen. They are more caring initiatives. But these are workplace achievement celebrations. I remember in one of the speeches, the CEO, then CEO of Jack Welch, the GE CEO, had said, we find a reason to bring a cake every week. Find a reason to celebrate. Because celebration is an investment in energy of the people. Similarly, sharing and hiring. These are your 9 opportunities where you can practice you gift. You can create an environment of going that extra mile. And of course, in the process, you earn yourself the discretionary effort of your team. And therefore, achieve the organizational objectives, create an environment where people are giving their personal best, And finally, create that team spirit, that camaraderie, that sense of family. Ultimately, this is what you want as a manager, right? This is what you want as a company. Performance, individual commitment, and of course, great collaboration. So, coming to what are the investments that matter in this process? What do you have to invest? And if somebody says, hey, I will need a huge budget for this, I don't have the budget for this year, already we are down to the bones. Let me assure you, none of this costs money. If you think that this costs money, then I think we are missing the point. Money is transactional. But definitely, as managers and leaders, you need 4 investments that are absolutely fundamental to creating a Giftwork environment. And I'm just going to take another 3-4 minutes before we stop and see if any of you have any experiences or questions. One is investment of time. You can't create a great workplace culture unless you're willing to invest time. Yeah? And I can dare to say this based on my modest, limited experience, that great workplaces cannot be created by chance. And unfortunately, just structural interventions don't create cultural impact. Yeah? You can do whatever mergers, acquisitions, transfers, redefining roles and responsibilities, and you can do any of this, flattening of levels. You can do any of this. Yeah. But that's not going to help you create a great workplace culture. Great workplace culture comes from that discretionary effort impact, and of course, the time that you invest in creating positive workplace experiences. Similarly, you need effort. There is a design to this, there is an effort to this. For example, how do we conduct a town hall in which everybody gets opportunities to participate? Now, that's not easy. Those of us who have conducted town halls know the amount of effort that goes in. And if you have to make that impact even better, then there'll be more effort required. And that's possibly the reason why not many are able to create this culture, because they are not planning for these investments. The third investment you need is the investment of thought. That's why I have been emphasizing the design principles, because how do you design an experience is a matter of thought. It's a matter of intelligence and collective intelligence. One person can't think through all this. But if you get your team involved, they will tell you, how do we create a great experience for ourselves? So there is a thought investment. And of course, there is a human touch to all this. None of this are, like we said, transactions which can be ticked off, or none of these are policies which can be written and enforced. There is a human touch to this. Whether you're doing performance conversations, whether you're sharing information, whether you're listening to people, whether you're celebrating. Yeah. How many times we have gone through celebrations which actually appear like transactions? Yeah. Everybody comes, they pretend to listen to the speech at the beginning. Most leaders don't even want to give that speech because they don't know what to say. Then, of course, there is food served. Depending on your food preference, you're going to join those groups. Vegetarian, non-vegetarian, whatever. You're going to finish the transaction and go home and sleep. Whereas I'm sure we all agree, celebration is more than just whining and dining. So these are the 4 investments that are built into every interaction that a leader has. And that's our attempt at Great Place to Work through this program called Giftwork Journey, where we are equipping the managers to learn how to do this, practice it for 3 months, and see the impact for themselves. I would encourage all of you to look at this wonderful ad that Samsung had released a few years back. At the end of that ad, Samsung service. And at the end of the ad, it very beautifully and very inspiringly says, रिश्ते निभाने के लिए कभी-कभी थोड़ा दूर जाना पड़ता है. To build relationships, to sustain relationships, you have to walk that extra mile. You can't keep doing the same old thing in the same old way and hope that you will build great relationships. Yeah, that's absurd. So that extra is where the managers and leaders can actually put in to get that extra that you want for yourself, your company, your team, of course, for your customers and stakeholders. So this is really the whole idea of Giftwork. And if any of us now are thinking about what is the impact of this, and this is my last slide. The impact, like I said, I can just go on with impact stories. I have heard thousands of them from managers themselves. Yeah. But it's not going to help in any way that I tell you what the impact those managers have experienced. I will invite you to experience this for yourself by looking at designing and planning your Giftwork interactions with your team members and encouraging managers you work with, managers you have. Some of you could be managers yourself, to take this Giftwork idea, convert them into your day-to-day interactions, and I can almost guarantee you today, with the experience we have had doing this for a variety of organizations and managers, that the impact is for you to discover, for you to feel. So this is really what I wanted to share with you in this webinar. I hope that you have found some value in this. I'll be more than happy to take any questions. I can't promise you answers, but I'm sure your questions will be great learning opportunities for all of us. Based on my limited experience, I'll try and answer those questions, and therefore happy to open the floor for any kind of question answers. Before we close, of course, we'll put up a short feedback form for you to tell us how did you find this webinar. But before we do that, are there any questions? A couple of minutes for any questions, any thoughts, any experiences that any of you would like to share. So I'll just check.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Vijay, there's one question in the group. I think Deepa has asked, how can we create a town hall where everyone gets to participate?
Good question, and truly challenge. Seems like a small challenge, but it is not, because a lot of companies depend on town hall for communication and interaction. So I can share with you, Deepa, three ideas that I've seen work magic. One is, don't create generic town halls. Yeah. Create theme-based town halls, because the theme-based town halls give people a clear message on what can they expect to hear and talk about and share and learn. So while once in a while you might do a generic town hall just because your senior leader is in town from New Jersey or New York or wherever he or she comes from, but apart from that, do theme-based town halls. That's one idea that I can share with you. Second, the best town halls are not the ones where only leaders speak. So find a reason, find a design where even employees several levels below can also get a stage time in town halls. And then you know what happens? They will get their friends along saying, hey, I'm going to speak for 10 minutes on my last certification program that I did and the learnings I've had. You must come for the town hall. They will get their friends with them. So give opportunities for employees also to have some stage time on the town hall. And the third is, prepare them for questions. Most people, and I keep hearing this all the time, most people are hesitant asking questions. So allow them some form of anonymous process where they don't have to worry about, how are they sounding, is their English right, and stuff like that, but just ask what's on their mind. So create that anonymous space where this can happen. Yeah. So these are three ideas I can think of right now on how to improve the quality of town halls. Yeah.
All right. Do we have any other questions on the chat? I think until we get another question, I would request Anushka to also just flash the feedback form as well. And we have another question. Can we have town halls specifically for different divisions?
In fact, a brilliant idea, because the more specific and focused you make the town halls, the participation goes up significantly, is what we have seen, because they own it up, right? It's about something that they are connected with on a day-to-day basis. So keep the again, having said that, I'm sure there'll be a need for broader town hall, company level and all that. Keep doing that. But please also add some town halls where people come together from similar divisions, sections, departments, and that becomes a very, very engaging platform. So yes, it's a good practice.
All right. Any other questions?
Hey, also, I can see some of you have commented on your experience in this session. Thank you so much. And I'm glad that some of you found it useful.
Okay. So, yeah, I think we don't have any other questions right now. Okay. All right. Okay. So we do have another question. In a context of a company going through merger, how can we build trust when the new structure is yet to be in place? It's by Deepa.
Yeah, very good question again. And generally, mergers and acquisitions are considered to be some very complex changes that you make in the organization. So what we have seen, and of course, also in the context of how you do merger and acquisition, there are three factors which play a very, very significant role. Okay. One is how much is the level of involvement while the merger is happening. Of course, some things happen at the top, board level, and your investment banking firms are involved, etc. I'm not talking about that, but I'm really talking about now that we have created this one enterprise, how much is their involvement across the levels from two different companies to come together and create one whole. Okay. Culturally, that's a huge difference because we have seen that when the mergers acquisitions happen, generally there is this power imbalance. So they have bought us, we have bought them, kind of a thing, right? So you want to avoid that. One. Second, it's a great opportunity to create some socialization platforms. Trust is not built in meeting rooms. Trust is built outside the meeting rooms. So can you create platforms and forums where people meet outside the meeting room? The observation is exactly opposite. A lot of times when mergers acquisitions happen, everybody is in back-to-back meeting rooms, no time to build trust. So while that is important and some things have to be said right, all that is fine from a formal point of view, but are you also creating informal forums where people from different parts of the company and the merged entity are coming together to socialize? That's the second thing. And third is this is a time when you need a lot of investment of time in two things. One, learning, and second, celebrations. These are two things that drop like a stone when the merged entity starts working because everybody is now busy trying to prove to each other. Don't let that happen. In the long term, it's like hitting yourself on the foot. It's not about performance. Performance is an outcome. But in the way the culture evolves, you need involvement, you need lots of learning and celebration, and you also need people to come together outside the meeting rooms. And each of this, if you think about it, are actually gift work opportunities, right?
Yeah, so we have two more questions and I think we'll stop there. So we have a question from Shreya who's asked, how can organizations ensure that employee engagement initiatives feel meaningful and not transactional?
Good question. I mean, that's the essence of this entire webinar, right? How do you make it more meaningful? I think one way to make it more meaningful is to let the employees give it the meaning. What is important for them? Where do they see a value? How will they feel connected to the three relationships, right? Management, job, and other team members. So it's not engagement as an outcome. It is engaging the employees to create that outcome. So as much as you are able to drive engagement through with employees from the employee's viewpoint, you will make it meaningful for them. Yeah. So, the traditional joke that if engagement is owned up by HR, then we get busy doing Rangoli competitions. Don't get me wrong, I've been HR head myself. Okay. But why is then Rangoli competition not perceived meaningful? Because the people who have to see it as meaningful are not involved. Yeah. So create forums, create opportunities where your employees tell you what is meaningful for them. That's a very big starting point. And then rest of it is about program management, organizing, ensure good experience, budgets, all that, right? But the meaning is in the mind of the employee, not in the mind of the the department that's running this. Yeah, that is what I would say as a important starting point. Yeah. Of course, then there are experiences around aligning the engagement activities to the values of the company, aligning it to really the customer centricity that you want to build, all that stuff, right? So then you will align the activities to the key broad goals, but the starting point is employee involvement.
Yeah, so the last question is from Riddhi. What to do if employees don't want to participate in celebrations or any team building activities?
Okay. That's a scary question, but my answer, Nidhi, has always been the same. And this is, of course, based on my experience. I tell this to my clients. I tell this to when I was a CHRO, I used to tell this to my team members, 130 of them across 60 countries. Don't expect that everybody will jump in at the same time. Some people will join first. Some people will come later. That is where the test of leadership is. If you believe in it and you see a value and you are clear about why you're doing it, then let people join at their pace. Yeah, some people will be fast movers, make them the champions, give them the visibility. Like I said, they will go and get their friends. So expecting that 100% people will participate and join in won't really work. And the second thing in this is it's an important change in our own mindset as leaders of engagement to say that engagement and participation will come from involvement. If you just invite them to participate in an event, yeah, I have other things and better things possibly to do, right? But if I'm involved in the event, then you will have my participation. Yeah. So greater involvement and consistency is very, very critical for participation. Yeah, I don't see any other magic. All right,
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much everyone for participating, and thanks a lot, VJ, for this amazing session. And please feel free to reach out to us. We are more than happy to take your questions. Yeah, and thank you so much everyone for joining the webinar and for your questions as well. I think we've had some great questions that the participants have asked. Thank you so much, everyone.
Hey, thank you so much, and feel free to stay connected. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.